Okay, so here we are. It is July 6th, 2020, and we're having a conversation about engagement drives in learning action communities. We'll be here for a little less than an hour at this point. And what I'm hoping is that this is a time of resourcing each other, of sharing what questions we bring right now, of looking at the different kinds of engagement drives that we've um, kind of laid out conceptually, but also having a lot of storytelling. And I want to put our questions out first, so that as we're telling stories, maybe we can help answer each other's questions. And I know from the beginning that at least Anna and Jenny have stories about specific engagement drives that they've tried. Arielis, you've been working on the refugee march, virtual march, and maybe you have other stories also. I'm just not as familiar with what you've been doing recently. So I just hope that everyone here who has some experience will have a chance to share a little bit of your story. So, but I want to start with putting a link in, and I sent this document to everybody who I knew was coming, and I'm just going to send it to you directly now. Your gender justice at OEP, is that right, Skylar?
Yeah.
Okay, here it comes. And so in this document, and I'm going to put the link into chat if you'll just open it up, or if it would be more helpful for me to share it, I can do that. Is there anybody who it would be more helpful if I would share it? Like Grace, are you on your computer or something like that? I mean, are you on your phone?
I'm on my phone, but I have my computer open with it on my computer, so I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay, here's the link in the chat now. Okay, so what I want to start with is, coming into this call, what are some of your questions about engagement drives in learning action communities? So just like, come on in, don't be bashful.
I guess for me, it would be, I know that just reaching on your Facebook group is not enough for if you want to have like a big project or like a series where you meet with people. So who are the people that should be contacted in order to get more engagement?
Okay. I see Jenny jumped in and added a question right there. In fact, I'll just invite people to go ahead and just type your question in. Like, that might be more time efficient, and then we can just review them quickly.
Sorry, are we not supposed to do that? I
It's
just
all
want to
good.
sort of
No. So the ones that I see there so far are how to move from the network building or issue education stage to the action stage. Who else can we contact to get more engagement beyond Facebook group? What types of engagement drives have past OEP interns completed successfully? How to get ideas for new engagement drives? Anything else? Okay. You can also just call it out if you want to. And hi, Bill. I see that you joined us.
Yeah, I accidentally dropped in earlier looking for sorry. And then I saw the email and saw that I was invited to come in if I wanted. So I'm
Great.
back.
You are welcome. And I just put a link in chat to the document where we're working.
Thanks.
Okay. So, so let's keep these questions in mind as we move through the next couple sections of the conversation. So I'm going to also... Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just go through under where it says options, a couple of the ways that as Maria and I thought about the experience that people have had in the last several years, some different options like in the general sense. And then we'll get more into stories, and maybe we'll add to the list of options when we really think about the stories. So one option is a member drive. That is, so a member drive is like a chance that something that you are developing in which members of your learning action community can take action, do research, or participate in something together. So that is contrasted to the next thing, which is a call to action, which is someone says, we're asking everyone in the world or all people who fit this certain category to do this particular thing, and we bring our people along as a part of it. We say, we're going to try and get 15 participants or 30 church congregations to do this thing that someone else is organizing. So that's what a call to action is. A learning drive would be specifically like, I don't think that anybody has actually done a learning drive like this describes, which would be creating a basic introduction to terms and organizations and leaders in your area of focus and tracking people as they go through it. So you can use units in Facebook, or there may be something else, but it would be, it's particularly focused on like just people learning, like maybe it could be orientation for new members to your group. A couple of people in the staff added a couple of other ideas related to this, like, do we want to particularly have anti-racism or anti-oppression inclusion related to these criteria? Like if you're having a learning drive, you're going for a certain number of people of color or congregations of color who are participating. That's an open question in terms of the area of focus that you have and the way that you're trying to work with people. So for example, in the racial justice group right now, we're having some conversation about some monthly gatherings that would be particularly for white people. So, but that's a conscious decision that we're making and not just like an accidental one. And someone added participation in development efforts, like bringing people from our learning action community into participating in some way in development. Does anyone have any comments or questions about this? I'm really excited to get into the actual stories and examples, but just this far, is there anything that it makes you think about? Yes, Jenny.
Well, it kind of makes me wonder, like, do you think that interns in general should kind of create like a little skeleton of a learning drive, sort of as like an onboarding for like maybe new interns, or just like so that something exists so that like you can keep, because like I like the idea as orientation for new members, because I feel like usually it's just join and then start to figure it out as you interact with the group. But like, I don't know, like, is that something we should be including in like creating our onboarding materials, or what?
I think it would be helpful. One of the things I think it would respond to is one of our former interns in the racial justice area, Radia Shabazz, was recently giving us some feedback that it always seems like we're starting over at 101 level in the group. And she's just like, I was an intern 4 years ago. Like, why are we still at this level? And part of the reason that we stay at an introductory level is we're always trying to introduce new people to it. So maybe it would be a help to have in every learning action community, here's like 5 units or something, 3 units, that these are the basic terms that we use in this community. Welcome to the group. Please make your way through the learning unit and let us know when you've completed it. Maybe something like that. What do other people think about that? Yeah, Anna.
I think what Jenny said, like I was thinking of something similar, and I think it's really cool because, like she said, when we have new members, a lot of times I feel like they just arrive and they gotta figure out what's going on. And sometimes with our groups, like we change units and we move with projects really fast. So sometimes I feel like when they get there, they can get really lost. But I was thinking we could also add Kingian nonviolence, like add kind of a unit, or like find a way to introduce them to Kingian nonviolence, because we do that every month, more or less. Like we are a principal and we add like information about it and we share stuff. But if you're new, like I feel like you have no idea what's going on or what are you actually talking about. So maybe I think it would be great to have a unit or something like a structure to introduce them to the group, and also to introduce them to Kingian nonviolence so they can
Wonderful.
understand our dynamics.
Yeah, great idea. Does anybody else have a response? I love that idea. Or just any response to these options? Okay, well, anybody like butt in if you want to. Like, we're a small group and we know each other. We're all friends here. So I'm going to keep it moving forward though, but slow us down. If you want to go back to something, it's no problem. So let's go into stories and examples. And I wonder, Anna, if you would start us off.
Yeah, sure. So I shared the link to the PowerPoint I created for the, so you mean the OEP intern training PowerPoint?
Yeah, which included options like the virtual march and other kinds
Yeah.
of things like that. So
Yes.
particularly the parts of this that seem relevant to.
Yeah. So I added the link to the document you shared with us. If it doesn't work for you guys, I'll just share it with the group. Just let me know if you can open it. Okay, yeah. Can everyone open it? Yeah. Okay. Well, so for the ones that are new, what we did with this is with all the interns, we set up this PowerPoint just to be like an introduction for interns to kind of figure out their way in and not be so like, to kind of have a guidance when they start. So we have, there is this slide there called creative projects. So the idea was that with what we already did, the idea was to kind of help you guys get new projects on and take our ideas with you. So here, like, I guess we can explain them better later on. Like Jenny, you can explain yours better. If you want, Matt, you can start with the virtual march.
Yeah, great. So you're on slide 17. Is that where we
Slide
are?
20, yes.
Okay, great. So is everybody on slide 17? Are you good?
So,
Okay.
okay, so what I did here, I think it's what we called the call to action. So on April 22nd, we had Earth Day. So we knew because of we were in COVID situation, there were no strikes, people could not go out on the streets and march. So talking to Maria about what should we do, we decided to do a virtual march. So how it worked is that you can see it, I have a unit on the Facebook group and you can see it later. But how it worked is that we did maybe, I think it's like a week earlier, we shared a post talking about it. We said on this day, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do a march. And the idea was that people would make signs and then send us pictures of the signs or send us pictures of themselves holding the signs, whatever they were more comfortable with. And what we did also is we reminded them maybe like a few weeks before the day to do it also. So we kind of reminded the members to do it and not just forget about it. And I thought it was really cool because when we take a big movement going on and we bring it to our group and our job, I think like people got really engaged and people were sharing like with their friends and trying to get people to participate. And at the end, I was obviously I was concerned. I wasn't sure if it was gonna work out or not because people can say like, oh yeah, cool, I'll do it, and then you never know what's gonna happen. But it worked really well. That same day, I think we shared maybe like 20, 25 posts. It was really cool because we got also like the staff to share posts with us, and people from around the world shared different signs, different drawings, and that's how it worked. And then I post everything that day, and I concluded it with a post saying, "Thank you so much for sharing with us," and kind of ending this Earth Day. That's how I did it. And then I remember I talked to Arielis so she could do hers, and we kind of discussed the way so she could have her own way, but copying a little bit the structure. I don't know if anyone has any basic ideas about this march, but I think it's really interesting to do something like that when we have like big movements going on. We can kind of share it with our members and kind of get some like a call to action for the people that is part of our groups.
Yeah, I did that too. And then when I did it, I also shared resources about a lot of during World Refugee Day, there was a bunch of like video webinars or ways that people can join in virtually because you couldn't walk or and do an actual march because of COVID, but there was a lot of online things people can do. So I shared that too.
When each of you think about what fruit came from that, what do you think it brought to your group in terms of participation or members, or like what do you think was an outcome that you're happy about or you have questions about?
So for me, Matt, I was impressed with my group. That's something I was not expecting that much engagement. And that actually made me believe, I think that if we're able to have this call to action and we're able to engage the people, we can actually get work done and do stuff and engage with the community. So that kind of gave me a spike of, oh, it's possible. Like that's something, it's possible, we can do it. And if we find a way to reach out to them, we can like engage a lot of people at the same time.
How about you, Arielis?
Yeah, definitely with the engagement piece. I think a lot of times I feel like, I don't know, people might like a post or maybe they'll post something, but I felt like there was more engagement. So I got to see like who's actually like really, I guess, listening, paying attention to what's being shared around in the group. So that was pretty nice.
Excellent. Let's just keep going down the list. So I'm back in the original document. There's a link you can see to a Facebook post from a few years ago. This was a different kind of engagement drive where if you follow to the link, you'll see there was an effort, I guess this is from 2015, that after the shooting at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, where an African-American congregation, during prayer, someone entered and killed people. After that, in the weeks after that, there were a number of Black churches across the South that were burned down. And in response to that, there was an effort that was led by another organization to have a Rebuild the Churches Fund. And so the organizer at that time, who was the first organizer in the OEP Racial Justice, whose name was Zoe, worked to invite people. And we had, I don't know what the total of donations was. There were a handful of congregations that participated. One, I remember, raised like $800 just within their own congregation to participate. This was a part of something bigger. So you can see in the report there that the fund generated $93,000 each for 6 different congregations that had been burned down that summer. So that's one other kind of example. The next one on the list, I couldn't find a link to it. It was maybe from 4 years ago. It could have been also 5 years ago, but there's an African American church denomination, the Church of God in Christ, that had called for, maybe I'm wrong, and it was an AME body and not Church of God in Christ. And that's why I couldn't find it. But they called for white churches to have racial repentance Sundays. And so this was a call that was coming from a Black church denomination to white folks, to white Christians, to ask them to focus on repenting from racism during a worship service that summer. And we had a number of congregations that participated. One of them found they couldn't do it in 1 week, and they had 3 weeks in a row that were focused on storytelling and confession and prayer. And so that's another example of a call to action that's coming from another group. I can also talk about the IPSA program that China developed, but it's kind of boring if I do several in a row. So why don't we switch to Jenny to tell us about Prison Justice Engagement Drive.
Okay, so I was kind of gonna get more group members engaged because I was kind of just getting, likes on Facebook posts and a comment here and there, but there were all these members listed that I had never heard from, didn't know who they were. So like I started having one-on-ones with as many people as I could just to see who was willing. And like the overwhelming response that I got from most people was, well, I'm interested in getting involved, but I feel like I don't know much about the subject. So I don't want to get involved if I'm not prepared in that way. And then I also don't really know a lot of other people who care about this as well. And I just don't know how to take action. So that kind of led me to kind of think maybe I should create some sort of like engagement program with an incentive to get people to start seeing each other and so they feel less lonely. Also learning more about prison justice as an issue so that they feel equipped to be more of an advocate, and then hopefully guiding them towards action, taking action towards the end of the program, whether that be calling to inquire at their local. Initially it was visiting one, but then COVID happened. Or sending a letter to the representative or getting involved with a volunteer group or something like that. So it was kind of a pattern of building community, educating about the issue and about advocacy, and then taking action. So I kind of wanted to create a little program like that. And so as an incentive, we got the idea, like if you get however many points for doing activities, you get a prison justice t-shirt at the end. So yeah, it was kind of just like feeling my way, like putting out engagement poll, interest polls, and like figuring out how many people would even want to participate, and then choosing like educational resources to use for that. So far, I'm really glad that I did it because I've met and interacted with so many more people in the group that previously were just a profile on Facebook, and it seems like many of the people who are engaged are happy to be learning about what we're learning about and feel more connected to the other people in the group. So where I am right now is trying to really encourage them to take that last step towards applying like the community action. So yeah, so I guess that's the summary of that for me.
One of the things that was new in that one is this idea of an incentive. And Jenny and I were looking in Nation Builder. They have something called social capital that we're not using at Honors Peace right now in any structured way, but it's like, I think people get social capital when they like one of our Facebook posts, but you can also assign them social capital points. And if you look at it in there, like it doesn't make any sense because we're not using it. So different people might have lots or very little. But we got to thinking, well, how could we use that? And we couldn't figure out any way that it made sense to use the function in Nation Builder. So we worked together and created this like list of activities that has points associated with it. And then Jenny designed a t-shirt, and so we just figured it's worth it to spend $13 per person to get like a heightened level, like whatever it's going to cost for the t-shirt. to get that heightened level of involvement and engagement, because it really develops people and their investment. Does anyone have any questions for Jenny about that program or how it's been set up?
Can you share like I guess since we don't have like a skeleton of these types of drives, like can you share how you created it and drafted it? I know for next month, I'm working on an engagement drive for immigration detention centers. So that'd be a good reference guide.
So kind of like what Matt was saying, it was creating activities. So like, how do I want people to become more engaged? So like, we broke down the activities into Facebook group engagement, community building, learning and community building, and taking action. So it's like in that first group of activities, you can write, put a meaningful comment or analysis of a prison justice issue on the Facebook page. The second category of activities could be like attending watch parties, attending group discussions, having one-on-ones with the facilitator, things like that. And the last one would be giving them examples of activities, solo activities that they could take. So for me, that was like calling your local prison to ask about a specific prison justice issue, sending a letter to your representative. So like I separated the activities into those categories. And then it was down to deciding like how many weeks should this be. And I decided on doing like a meeting a week. And so that was broken into finding videos on certain subjects pertaining to prison justice to be an educational resource. And then also I chose a specific book for the group to read together, which was The New Jim Crow. So it was like centering it around a very educational resource and supplementing that with further video resources. And that was like the meeting part of it. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. But yeah, it was basically coming up with the categories of activities to facilitate like how you want to help the group, and then finding resources and figuring out how you want to like structure your meetings and how long you want it to be. So yeah.
I'm gonna put a link to the resource guide that Jenny created. Maybe I'll put it back in the document for this meeting, and then people could just take a minute and look at it. The thing I'm particularly thinking of is if you follow that link that I just put in the document, will you just talk about the different categories in that, Jenny? Like there's a program calendar, there's the activity point guide, one-to-one sign up link.
Yeah. So I decided to put this there just because it seemed like I was sending out a lot of links and lots of different emails, so I wanted to put it all in the same place. So I put in like a Google Calendar for everybody to access, like to figure out when the next meeting was coming up to plan for it, even though I do send out reminder emails. And I put the activity point guide in there, so if you want to click on that, you can, but that just kind of goes into, it just talks about the different categories of activities and what those activities are, and then how many like points you can earn for doing them. And we set it up so that 80 points would equal a t-shirt at the end of the program. And so I also found a PDF version of the book just to make it even easier for people to access, so they wouldn't have to wait on ordering it from somewhere, or they didn't have the funds to do so, or something like that. And I also put a link to the Facebook page just so that you know, all group members could have access to everything they needed in one place. Yeah, and I put the one-on-one sign up link in there just because at the beginning of the program, I tried to have a one-on-one with every single person to kind of like maybe change or tailor the program more specifically to what the participants wanted. Yeah, so that's what this document is.
And you had like asked people to commit beforehand, so you had a list of people going into it that you're like,
Mm-hmm.
Here's my 15 people who have expressed interest or said yes or maybe.
Yeah, so after I heard back from the interest poll, everybody that I got interest from, I sent out another email saying, if you are going to sign up for the program, please reply with a yes or no so I know what to plan for. Yeah, and I think that was like So the interest poll went out a month before the program started, and then I sent out that confirmation email 2 weeks before the program started.
Okay, does anybody have other questions for Jenny?
I do.
Yeah.
So Jenny, how long has it, like, I know you're still working on it, so how long has it been, or how long are you planning it to be?
So I planned for it to be 8 weeks, and we're still on track with that. We just finished, I believe, the 4-week mark. So we're about halfway through, and I'm pretty happy with the level of engagement and community building that I see happening. But yeah, kind of like, that's why I put that question in our document for today, is like, I'm really trying to get people to move from pretty good with the engagement and the education part of it, but I'm trying to put it to the next step of like, here we are taking action with these solo activities. So that's where I am with the program right now, just considering we're halfway.
And part of the design of the lengths and everything was like looking at how long Jenny had left in her internship, and the 8-week design let her run it one time and then have a month to reassess, and then run it another time before her internship ends. So the idea is that August is redesign, and then September and October is a different version of the program. Shall we keep moving, or are there more questions for Jenny? Okay, so the next one, you can follow the next link there. It'll take you to a PowerPoint that China Dawson created, who is a previous racial justice intern. And China was developed like about a year ago now, a first run of this program that she coined the acronym IPSA, which is Identity Problem Solution Action. And you can see that breakdown actually on the third slide, and maybe we'll come back to the second slide. And so this is the second time she had run the program. And the time frame when it was going to be run was like March, April. And so it just like got completely killed by COVID. So just like, because the world broke down. So she wasn't able to fully implement that program. She had designed it as a 4-week program where in the first week, it's about like how does racism function within the educational system? This one was focused on educational equity and systemic racism in education systems. And so the first week was like, what does racism within an education system look like? The next one is going to the deeper roots of the problem and looking at economic and historical issues. The third one is, what are the policies that people are talking about that could make it better? And the fourth one is, how can I get more deeply involved? So like that was the framework for it. And I think it would be more useful to look at the weekly questions for a minute, because it's something a little bit different than other things we've talked about. So if you go back to our meeting link and look at the questions week by week and open that one up and come over there, I'll give you just a second. So what this was informed by is we were trying to think about how to incorporate organizing practices of Kingian nonviolence into the process, along with the questions for each week. And so the first step of organizing in Kingian nonviolence is information gathering, where you build an analysis of what the problem is and what the possible solutions are. And so what we're asking people to do is participate week by week in actually researching the actual issues related to racial equity in their own school district. So and China was curating general posts in the group, but then we asked people to do research and report back about it in the group. So for example, if you click down to see where I'm highlighting in week 1, we're asking people to note down their initial hunches. Like, what do you think the division is in terms of racial, like demographics in your school board or in your district, etc. Just like note it down for later reference. Then start to research, what are the actual literal demographics? What are the demographics of people who work for your school district? What are related issues? And then as we go through the 4 weeks, we're asking people in the second week, which is on the deeper roots, to learn about the class, racial, and cultural history of their area in general and related to education, like the history of their school districts, the history of segregation, integration, those kinds of things. And looking at the specific policies and practices that perpetuate the conditions of racial inequity in your school district. Week 3 was asking people to look at after school programs, mentorship programs, who are the groups in your community that are already working on addressing this, and choosing a group that's in your community to reach out to. And week 4 is having that one-to-one with someone from your own community, identifying what are some of the seeds of a solution, or what proposals for change have you discovered that you believe would be effective? And then identifying, okay, you've gotten this far. What are you going to do in the next 4 weeks related to your own school district and its racial equity issues? Are you going to go to school board meetings? Are you going to follow up with the groups that you found out are doing advocacy work? So that, does anyone have any questions? Like I said, this was like developed further from China's first offering that was in June 2019. And we were really excited about it, but it was right in the middle of it that like everything shut down and people stopped doing things like this for a while. Yeah, Anna.
So okay, so then I think she didn't start doing it, but I was wondering, how was she expecting to like keep up? So how would she know what were the people doing? Like,
so we were using we got a couple of weeks into it and we were using units in the Facebook group. And so she created a unit for each week and then asked people to report back in the unit about their research.
okay.
And what we found when we looked into that is when you use a unit that way, the posts still show up in the main group. So it could draw people in, but it also organizes them like under each week so you can go back and see them easily. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, let's see what else we have. We already talked about virtual March, and do you want to say anything else about that in light of the things we've been talking about? Okay, the last one that I want to mention as an example is a book study group. And I went back and found a post about this, but let me see if I can find it right now. I didn't get the link in here. Here, let me put this back. So several years ago, when Chibuso Petty was the organizer in the racial justice group, we selected a book that was called Trouble I've Seen, Changing the Way the Church Views Racism. And Chibuso did a couple of things with that. One was that there was a national book study group. So people from all over the country who were discussing the book via Zoom. But at the same time, Chibuso was asking anybody from that group or anybody else to lead groups in their own church congregations about the group, about the book. And so there were something like 10 or 15 congregations that participated in having book study groups. And Chibuso took the study guide that came from the publisher and adapted it a little bit So we had with the permission of the publisher and the author. So we had our own version of the study guide, and that's what people were using in their congregations. And so we were pleased by the engagement that provided and the way that it got out into church congregations and touched many more people than we might have touched ourselves, because it was like Dean Beery from Huntington Church of the Brethren in Indiana was in the national group, but then he was turning around and also leading it in his own congregation with other people. Any comments about that option? Well, let's go back up to the questions. We've got like 15 minutes left, and let's like, in light of all the things that we've talked about, let's see if we can dive a little deeper into the questions that y'all were bringing into the call. Let's go backwards. How to get ideas for new engagement drives. Whoever's question that was, do you feel like you got some new ideas so far today? Or put a finer point on that question so that we can help. Bill's over there playing with his background.
That was me, but yeah, I after listening to everyone and the different things that have been done, it was really helpful.
Okay, excellent. What types of engagement drives? Okay, so we've kind of addressed that also. Who else can we contact to get more engagement beyond just the Facebook group participants? That's a great question. I wonder, anybody who's tried that, what have you tried? Yeah, Anna.
What I did was contacting organizations. So it's kind of like what I did is I was trying to get more members to join the group. So it's kind of similar, because what I did is I was looking for organizations that get involved with, in my case, environmental justice. So I reached out to them and I was like, look, I'm doing this, I'm doing a virtual march. I would like your people to join. I explained them the project. And I think it's really good because it expands your work, and you also get to know new people and people working on the same field.
Great. Jenny had some experience with that too, with a group called the Death Row Support Project. Do you want to talk about that, Jenny?
Yeah, so the fall before, actually last fall, I called Rachel Gross, who is the director of the Death Row Support Project, just to like get to know her and learn more about her work. That we started, like a little back and forth relationship. Because if you don't know what that is, you can sign up to become a pen pal with somebody who's on death row. And so we made this little agreement, like if I have anybody in my group who wants another volunteer opportunity, I would send them her way. And if she wanted more beyond the pen pal, she'd send them my way. And so by the time like the program rolled around, and I was putting it out there, she just took the program advertisement and put it in her newsletter for the Death Row Support Project, and I actually got a lot of interest from that in itself. So that was really useful. And then another really useful thing that helped me get more participation, and this was Matt's idea, but it was the sending out email blasts through the Church of the Brethren newsline, and also sending out email blasts to newsletters that pertained to the group through Nation Builder. So that was really helpful in getting more people involved.
Does anybody have other experience that you want to add? Bill, you're also welcome to chime in here. You might have some ideas on this one. How do we get, how else do we broaden the circle of people that we're reaching to? Or how could we? Let's just brainstorm for a quick little minute here. I'm just going to go around and ask everybody for one idea. What's a way that you could get beyond the group of people who's in your Facebook group? No matter how wacky or crazy your idea is, just give me something. Skylar, yes.
My first thought was you could message members from other justice, like OEP justice groups, and approach it as like a saying, hey, these justice areas like intersect. And so like, yeah, I guess just framing it as like, if you're interested in this one justice area, here's how it connects to this other one.
Cool. Why don't you throw the ball to someone else? Put them on the spot.
I'm gonna throw it to Arielis.
So I guess since we talked about connecting with other organizing pages, maybe you can, if you research your local areas, maybe you can connect with like local organizations where you live, and then see if they'd be willing to join, and maybe you can do that with members too. And then you can share resources that way.
Okay, toss the ball.
I'll toss it to Grace.
I think everybody has like their own kind of maybe personal connections, and like for instance, Tamara and I have talked a lot about like if we did certain
Did Grace hang for everybody? Okay. We're losing you, Grace. We can't hear you.
Maybe you can type it in the chat.
I'm going to mute Grace and we'll move on and come back when she... I thought I was going to mute Grace. Grace, can you hear us? Okay, let's hear from the next person. Grace has frozen.
I think what she was talking about was just like sharing the things on our own personal pages, or like sharing it in the group and then sharing it on our own news feed as well, just so you can invite people from your own communities, especially on Facebook pages where like you might be friends with like past teachers or like past just like people who have been involved in your community. And then an idea that I had, it was just like, I don't know how unique this idea is, but like using other OEP events to like broadcast what you're doing as well. So like the community check-in or like things like that. And then Anna, I think you're the last one.
Yeah, kind of what you just said, Tamara, and what Skylar was saying, like we can share our content, like this kind of projects, with other OEP social media pages. Like I think that's something we don't do too often, but we could literally just share each other's works and projects and things like that. But also the Peace Builder newsletter, we haven't mentioned it, and it's something maybe we could be like a highlight of what are we gonna do, or what are we doing, so we can reach out like a broader community.
Excellent. I have one or two to add. One that I don't think it's on the list. Maybe it's it says contact organizations involved with your issue. There are also lots of social media groups. Like for example, just within Facebook, when we were working on the IPSA program, I just went and looked at racial equity in education in the search bar. And I found all of these groups that were interested in that. So if you're doing something on that issue, why not join that group and invite people to come in? So that would be like other groups in Facebook on your issue. And another one, and this is just interesting in terms of the shifting identity of honors peace. So it feels less relevant now, but I'll just say something that we have done in the past is think about people who are active in different parts of the Church of the Brethren, which like, obviously you're not going to know those people, but long-term staff do. And we could help like develop a plan to reach out to people specifically through the Church of the Brethren in different districts, and who are a lot of our like really thoughtful participants are those people. So it's like Church of the Brethren Connections is another one. And that's one I feel like we did more at a time in the recent past than we do right now. Just like who is in each district, etc. Which there are 24 geographic districts of the Church of the Brethren around the United States. And so in each area, it's like, there are people who might care about the thing that you're working on. And so it's a way to find people who are interested in your issue by reaching out to pastors in that area or something like that. Bill, do you have something to say?
I do. And this is something that people on this call are already doing, is as you set up your own channels in other social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, etc., for your LAC, as you go about following other people and other groups, end up following you back. And so as stuff goes out there, it can tend to sort of lure them into your communication stream. And then if you share stuff from them, it's even more powerful. Share stuff with their handle and their hashtag. And people are already doing it. I mean, I was just on with Tabby today and she's seeing it already succeed.
Does that scratch the itch for this question, or do we need another couple ideas?
Just in terms of, for instance, when we're contacting different churches of the brethren, when we're doing engagement drives, how do we know what are the emails and things to contact them through?
Maybe Bill knows more what's current in Nation Builder, but a couple of years ago, we had a volunteer go through, and now Darlene's been updating. So we have a tagged list for every district in the denomination. So you can like write to pastors in a certain district. And so maybe outside of this call, Bill or I could walk through that with you, or like how you could potentially use it. Do you want to say anything more about that, Bill? I actually haven't used that in a little bit.
Our tagging in those respects is much higher with the congregations than it is with individuals. Mm-hmm. So all the congregations have their district tags. A handful of individuals do. And we've also got a list of pastors that are over 1,000 people. So they're in our main list, but they're a separate list of pastors. But we haven't gone through the 6,000 or so people and tagged half of them that are brethren with their brethren district or congregation.
And also, I'll say more because it's kind of lingo. Jenny mentioned the Church of the Brethren newsline, which is a news publication list that goes out from the Church of the Brethren denomination that we can add news items to. And so, like, if you're running a engagement drive about something and you want to invite people to participate, we can tell you who to send that to. And then there's thousands of people who will see it. So.
And if somebody was really motivated to explore or tap that channel, we could put out specific communications to the list to ask people to just check like a survey box or something to tell us who or what, you know, in terms of their faith commitment, their faith community membership, etc. A lot of people who are brethren would end up responding to that. And even some who are not brethren would end up responding to it too, depending on how we framed it. So it's just something we could do with our comm team if any of you all got really interested in it.
I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but Is this what you're talking about? That we could write to our whole list, for
Yes.
example, and say, at this point, we have learning action communities, and then in these 10 areas, are you interested in any of those? And then we just give that information to the organizer.
That is one thing we could do on a different set of weeks or different month. Another thing we could do is inquire about people's faith participation. So like, and give them a survey if you're brethren, and you could even like, we have the ability to easily tag everyone by district, and even, you know, every congregation, every brethren congregation on our database has a unique COB ID, a Church of the Brethren identification number. So all I'm saying is if those things became of interest, we could begin to ask for data that we have not yet collected or kept fairly easily with a fairly decent participation rate likely.
Thanks, Bill. So we're at the end of the hour that we had, but we've got this question that was the first one on the list: how to move from network building issue education to action stage. So are people willing to spend 5 more minutes working on this? Her phone was overheating. That doesn't sound good. Grace's phone was overheating. Can we spend 5 more minutes? Okay. Jenny, can you briefly restate this question? Or put a fine point on it?
Yeah, so that's just from like where I am right now, was like seeing that there is a level of community networking happening. There is a lot of interest in the education and people want to take that next step to action. But so far what I'm seeing is like not a lack of willingness to do it, but I feel like people might not know like how to get started. So it's just like, how do I facilitate and enable them to be confident in like taking those action stages, which is like for me, like the solo activities I listed at the bottom of my program guide. And this question was sort of answered for me a little bit looking at like the program that China created. So I might do a little, make more of a guidelines for them with like questions that they can ask and things they can research in their own communities. But yeah, so mostly it's just like, how do I facilitate and motivate and enable people to take that next step?
One of the things that the question makes me think of is there's like two, maybe there's always more than two, but it makes me think of a difference. One is individual, like totally individualized action, and the other is collective action, that people are doing something that's different than just signing an online petition, but they're all doing it together. And I think that we always walk that line in our learning action communities, because people are like figuring their own thing out and choosing what they're going to do, but they can really be inspired or encouraged by collective opportunities for action. Let's share ideas for a couple more minutes about this.
I have like a question kind of thing for Jenny. So have you asked them about what do they have in their local community? Because I'm thinking, for example, I would like to do it, but I don't know where to start. If you tell me, okay, have you looked at the prisons around your community? Do you have any prison around? Do you know if there are any activities they do? Is there any way you could get, like, I think that if you kind of find a few questions you could ask them about their local community, or maybe other kind of engagement that you want them to start taking part of, maybe that kind of opens their mind to be like, oh, well, there is this prison that's 30 minutes away from my house. Maybe let me look into it. Maybe I can do something. You know, maybe a few questions could help. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I have mentioned it here and there, but I'm kind of realizing like I want to put together a more succinct list of like guided research questions for their own community and like questions they can ask and things to search. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Someone else have a comment or an idea?
A number of the organizers are doing one-to-ones, because I know I have one coming up with Tamara and Grace soon. And that's a really good chance to learn where people are and where they might be moving to or movable to. because so many people are looking for paths that they don't know how to find. Some people are already on paths, you know, and it's a question of cross-connecting, helping to guide, helping to encourage and support.
I think one of the ways that is helpful is I think that I've seen people in a couple of groups now talk about like, let me help do research for your local area. Like, let me help you find the thing that's in your area. And I think also one of the reasons that one-to-ones can be powerful in this regard is sometimes people are just stuck. And people have different kinds of obstacles. Like for some people, it's a know-how or a skill. And for some people, it's like emotional, like confidence and I think that in those one-to-one connections, we can like help them figure out where they're stuck. Not like we can have all the answers, but just say, what is stopping you from doing that next thing? Like, what's your dream of involvement in this? What's stopping you from doing that? How can I help with what's stopping you? Like, so it becomes very personalized. Does anybody have another comment?
Can I ask a logistical question about language? Is there a difference between one-on-one versus one-to-one, or are they just the same thing? I'm just curious.
They're used interchangeably. There's an old community organizer here in Portland who it makes him very angry whenever you use the word one-on-one because it sounds like manipulation or like power over. And so he always prefers one-to-one. It's like, let me get them one-on-one. It's like you're on them. And he's like, no, it's one-to-one. And so maybe we can use that and replace it in all of our language.
I'm the same way, even though I was taught it as one-on-one, I never use that because like for me, that's like what I do on the playground playing basketball or something. It's
one-on-one basketball.
Right. You know? So
Yeah.
I never use it. I always use one-to-one, but I realize that I'm using deviant language. So
Yeah. So I think one-to-one is probably cleaner semantically. His name, the man I'm thinking of, his name is Dick Harmon. And he worked in an organization called the Industrial Areas Foundation, which was the organization that Saul Alinsky founded. And Saul Alinsky was really like initiated a lot of the way community organizing is thought about in the United States. And so he has a book called Rules for Radicals. And so that comes from Dick and from that line of thinking. So maybe we should do a global search and take out one. Someone just did that in the notes. That's good. So one-to-ones. Let's all help each other say it well. Okay. I think we're at the end of the time that we said we would use. Could we just check out and say like either one thing you appreciate from this call and or something that you're going to do next as a result of this call?
I can go first.
Thanks.
I appreciated everyone sharing their ideas and thoughts, and I'm definitely going to look into developing something similar to China's IPSA program. I don't know if I want to do the exact same thing, but like I am looking forward to talking to Grace about ways that we can adapt that program. And
I was gonna say I appreciated what we discussed. I know for August, like I said, I'm framing an engagement drive of sorts for immigration detention centers. So I'm definitely going to look into some of the resources that Jenny had shared and created because right now I'm in the drafting phases of what I want to do. But I also like the idea of the book story. So maybe that's something congregations can do because I already have a book in mind. But maybe that could be, depending after I read it in the context, maybe that could be something the congregations can use as well.
Excellent. Who's next?
For me, I also appreciate like everyone being here and sharing their ideas and everything you guys have done. And it's the same thing for me. I want to start my engagement drive after the summer. So I'm starting planning everything now to start in September. So yeah, thank you, Jenny, for sharing with us. And I will look into what you've done and what China did also.
I can go next. So it was really nice to hear everybody's ideas and thoughts about how to answer some of these questions that we had. It's nice to kind of be more on the same page with the subject too, as a group of interns. And so what I'm going to do for this meeting is I feel a lot more enabled to better facilitate the action part of the engagement drive. So thanks for everybody's notes and suggestions on that.
Yeah, like everyone else said, I think it's really helpful to hear like tangible experiences that people have had as opposed to like hypotheticals of doing certain projects. I think that's really helpful. And I'm really interested in the idea of a virtual march. So I'm going to think about ways that I can incorporate that in the future.
Excellent. There's one quick thing related to like moving to action that I forgot to mention when we were up there that I just want to say really quick. We used to have something that we called an organizer clinic in the OEP racial justice area that met monthly for maybe 15 months, something like that, that we're working this summer on rebooting together with a former intern, Radia. That was a time when people came and they like set goals for their own involvement in the following month. And then they came back the next month and talked about it again. And so that wasn't like a short engagement drive. It was an ongoing thing that people could drop into and out of. But we're like learning from what happened before and trying something new this time. So I just wanted to mention that we're trying that organizer clinic out. And we'll let you know how it goes. Or feel free to like follow along and watch what we're doing. So you can learn from our mistakes. Thank you everybody for taking time to be here and to share your expertise. It was really wonderful to have so many people sharing stories and questions and helping answer what people were curious about. I hope you have a great rest of your day, whatever time it is. See ya.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.